So you're thinking about van life or RV life. In this video, I'm gonna show you 15 different things that you might need to know before you actually start van life or RV life full-time or part-time. Hi, my name is Amber and I've been living in a van and an RV for a little over 4 years now. My first year of RVing, I was in a Class C, and then the last 3 years I've been in a van, going into my 4th year now of that. So I've learned a few things along the way that really will help you to learn more about RV life and van life and not fall into some of the same situations that I did, and hopefully you can learn from my experience. There are definitely some things that you need to know before you get started, and I'm gonna break down all of those essentials in this video so you know exactly what you need to do before getting on the road. So the first one we're gonna talk about is budgeting for RV life and van life. So some things that you can start doing now is there's a course that I have, it's a free course that you can take in the description box below that will allow you to figure out what your expenses are going to be in this particular life as a nomad. It has my budget and it lets you know kind of all of the expenses that I go through and things for you to think about when you're thinking about this lifestyle. But what can you do now to start preparing? So one is stop buying things. Start becoming a minimalist in your own home right now. The other part of that is to start selling things. If you're very serious about this lifestyle, or maybe you're on the fence and you just want to try out some minimalism, you can start doing that now in your home. Start selling things and getting rid of those big items that you just don't need anymore. There's lots of places online that you can go sell things. You can do garage sales, you can sell on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, you can put notices up in your neighborhood. There's all kinds of ways that you can go about selling things, but that's a key thing, is just to go ahead and start selling it now so that when you're ready to move into this lifestyle, you're not all of a sudden stressed out because you have to sell everything really quickly. The other thing is to start getting rid of subscriptions. So get rid of your cable bill. You're not gonna have cable on the road most likely. You might have Netflix or Amazon Prime. So start paring down those subscriptions and get rid of as many as you possibly can. So the second thing to think about is, how are you going to live on the road financially? Are you already retired? Do you need a job? Do you have a business? What kind of income will you need to sustain your lifestyle? If you're already retired, well, you have the easy part already down. So if you already have a remote job or a retirement or a business, this might be pretty easy for you to go into this lifestyle and kind of seamless. If you don't already have those things, the good news is there's tons of things out there for people to do remote work. So there's work camping that you can do. There's different organizations for that where you can find work on the road. There's also remote jobs everywhere now, especially after what's happened in the last year and a half with the pandemic. A lot of companies have gone remote. So you have a lot of different situations with that you can take advantage of and find income to sustain you on the road. The third thing that you need to factor into is, are you going to do this full-time or part-time? That will affect a ton of your decisions. If you're going to do this full-time, well, clearly you're going to need maybe a different RV, maybe a different income. If you're gonna do this part-time, you're gonna obviously keep a base home that you're gonna go back and forth to. So there's a bunch of different factors to consider when you're thinking about going full-time and part-time, and we'll get into some more of that as we go along. But just consider that, are you gonna go full-time or part-time? I decided to go full-time. I sometimes wish I had kept my base home now, but this is 4 years into it. So originally I didn't want one. I just wanted to travel full-time and not have to worry about a base home. But sometimes I kind of wish I had one now. So the fourth thing to think about is, what kind of a rig is going to be good for you? Do you need a Class C, a Class B, something big, something small, something nimble? Do you need solar power so that you can power all of your electronics if you're working remotely? Do you want to winter camp? If you want to winter camp, you're going to need an RV that is an all seasons RV where your tanks aren't going to freeze. So my van is not a 4 seasons. My tanks are below the RV and the pipes are also exposed as well. So I can't really do winter camping very well. So you'll need to consider that. Do you want to stealth camp? Do you want to urban camp? Do you want to boondock more? Which this is boondocking out in nature. You can be on national forest land or BLM land. So with that, you may not want a van like I have. You might want a bigger space because you're going to stay in one place a little bit longer. But if you're more of the person that wants to urban camp, a van might be perfect for you because it's stealthier, you can park in more spaces, and you're gonna be moving around quite a bit. So the fifth thing to consider is, will you be working on the road? And if so, what kind of resources and technology do you need? So when I think about working on the road, I need Wi-Fi, which is an internet connection, a cell phone, most likely, solar power to power all of my electrical devices. So the other thing to think about is solar power. What are your needs for solar power? For me, I have 400 amp hour batteries, but I only have 250 watts of solar. It's not enough for me. I actually need more than that. So that's something to consider, as well as your power consumption and what you will be needing on the road, especially if you're working remotely. So the sixth item is, where are you going to sleep each night? You have options from urban camping, boondocking, like I was saying, out here in nature, more urban areas. Are you gonna be on the West Coast versus the East Coast? All of that plays into it. If you're on the East Coast like I was not too long ago, there's not a lot of BLM and national forest land for you to be on. It's gonna be more campgrounds and urban or stealth camping. Out here on the West Coast, we have a lot more land for you to choose from. So you can come out here and camp on the land and national forest and BLM lands, and it's absolutely beautiful out here. I really, really love it. It's my actual preference to be out here on the West Coast. With trying to figure out a place to stay every night, they have various apps that you can look at. So my favorite is Campendium. I put the links down below as well. Campendium is my favorite go-to because it has campgrounds and it also has all of the free lands that you can stay on, as well as truck stops and things like that if you're just on the highway and you need a place to stay really quickly, or rest areas. The other one is iOverlander. iOverlander is mainly for, I think, people who are in vans or car camping, because some of the spots are a little tighter and they're also more urban areas. But those are two really good options. And then another one is called Allstays. Allstays app. Check out any of those three and I think you'll have a really easy time trying to find places to stay. Those are my three favorite ones. Now this seventh one might seem really weird for some of you who have not lived in a van or an RV or been in a campground. So that is, how are you going to clean your body on a daily basis or every other day basis? Those are some things to consider. You may not take a shower every day. I used to when I was in a sticks and bricks, but I don't now. I'm, probably an every other day where I wash my hair and wash my body down. I always wipe myself down every single day with wet wipes or a washcloth, but I wash my hair every 2 to 3 days. So those are some things to think about too, because that will make a decision on what rig you get. So my RV has a shower, but it's a wet bath and it's not really, really great. It's not a separate shower, which I had in my Class C and I really preferred that. But here's the thing, if you're gonna be out boondocking like I am right now, it's one of those things where water consumption is huge. The reason why water consumption is really on the top of your list when you're boondocking is because the longer you can make your water last, the longer you can stay out without having to go back into town or wherever you can find water to get more water and dump your tank. So that's a huge factor to think about. If you're taking showers every single day, well, you're not gonna be able to boondock for very long without having to go back into town and get water. The other way that I keep clean is I have a gym membership. So whenever I'm in towns where my gym is at, I will go take a shower there. Otherwise, it's just washing my hair in the sink and sponge bathing it every day. So just because I'm not under a shower head does not mean I am not clean. I'm definitely still clean. So the eighth one is your eating habits. Your eating habits might potentially change in an RV. So sometimes, especially if you're in a van, the refrigerators are going to be smaller. They're not going to have as much space for you to keep more foods. You probably won't have a full set of pots and pans like you do in a sticks and bricks house, or all of the appliances and all of the things that come with owning a home. And so that's something that you'll want to think about when you also pick your rig out. If you are a person that likes to cook a lot and use an oven and a stove and have a large refrigerator just stocked full of food, then you're probably going to want a Class A RV. Those typically come with much bigger refrigerators and sometimes residential fridges. In the van, if we go from one extreme to the other, in the van I have a very small refrigerator and all the storage space that I have is very small too. I have one pan that I use as a pot and a pan that has a lid, and then I have a cast iron skillet that I use. Probably don't need to have both, but I like having the cast iron to use for different types of foods. So in other words, you're not going to be able to live, most likely, the same way you would in a sticks and bricks house in an RV situation. So also something to consider when you're thinking about what rig to pick up. What do you think about this lifestyle so far? Would you live in a van? Would you go for something bigger like a Class A or a truck camper? Leave me a comment below and let me know your thoughts on things that are kind of do's and don'ts for you, things that you're like absolutely have to have, or things that you're like, nah, I could probably do without that. So the ninth thing to think about, and this always gets a lot of laughs, is how do you go to the bathroom? Do you have a toilet? Surprisingly, some vans do not have toilets. People build them out that way. They would rather go to a public place or go urinate on the ground or dig a hole for their poop. And if you're shy about talking about poop and pee, we do it a lot in RV life, so that's something that you'll have to get used to because it's something that we deal with. We're either we're handling it ourselves all the time, whether that's dumping our tanks or doing the bag method, which is putting a trash bag in a bucket and going number 2 inside that and then tossing the trash bag when you can. There's so many different options, from just the toilet that comes in your standard RV to a composting toilet to a flush toilet. They have bag toilet. That's definitely something else for you to think about when you're thinking about what rig you're going to get, is looking at the different toilet options. I know, I didn't think about that when I first started, so this is something that I learned along the way. And especially having a breakdown in my own toilet and trying to figure out, well, maybe I want to go with a composting toilet instead of a cassette toilet. So the 10th thing to consider is, do you like living outside? Do you like nature? Do you like doing things outside? If you don't, this probably isn't the lifestyle for you, unless you're going to buy, again, a very large RV that feels more like a big home for you and staying in campgrounds all the time. Otherwise, we're out in nature quite a bit. We're hiking, biking, going to hot springs, going on adventures, kayaking, river rafting, just sitting outside and enjoying the nature. So if you're concerned about bugs and ants, and I'm in bear country right now, if you're concerned about all of that stuff or afraid of it, there's also mice too. We have to deal with mice sometimes out here. Then this might not be the lifestyle for you. If you click on this link right up here, there's a couple that I interviewed that were RVing for only about 13 months when they decided to come off the road. And one of the things that they cited was, she's like, I'm not really an outdoors person. For me, I love it outside. I live in a very small space, which is the van. So I tend to live outdoors a lot more. I have a chair, I have my yoga mat that I'll pull out, especially when I'm in boondocking spots like this, and then just hang out outside as much as I can during the day because I just love it so much. It feels really good, except when the wind is blowing like this and I'm trying to film a video. Take my bicycle out and do all kinds of things outside. I feel like RVing and van life is one of those things where you live out of the home rather than in it most of the time, which is very different from our sticks and bricks lifestyle. The 11th thing to think about is inclement weather. So what I mean by that is it can be really cold or it can be really hot, and how will you adapt to those conditions? So for example, I was on the East Coast for a good portion of this year and it got really, really hot and humid there. I do have an AC, however, you really need to be plugged into shore power in order to really run the AC at its best most of the day. So I don't tend to do campgrounds very often, so that poses a problem for me. I have to then decide, do I leave the East Coast or do I go find a campground most of the time? If it's cold weather and you don't have a 4-season van like me, then you can't be in freezing temperatures. So if you see that there's going to be freezing temperatures, well then you're probably going to have to leave or dump all of your water, which I did do in Texas this year because a storm caught up to me and I couldn't outrun it. And I had to dump all the water, dump all the liquids out of all my tanks so that it didn't freeze and burst my pipes. I didn't even have time to go get antifreeze to put inside to winterize my van. It just happened so quickly. Do you have an RV that's going to be a 4-season one where you can adapt to the weather, whether you're in hot weather or cold weather? Are you going to be staying in campgrounds most of the time? Are you going to be on land the majority of the time? And if so, what do you do to acclimate to that? They have various fans that you can purchase to put in there. They have fantastic fans that you put in the roof that really keeps the air flowing when it's hot outside. There's USB fans that you can purchase, which I really love. I keep 2 USB fans inside of my rig. As far as heat is concerned, I do have a propane powered furnace. It also uses electricity if I'm plugged into shore power. Some people will buy portable heaters to put inside of their van or their RV as well, because it's small and it doesn't use as much energy sometimes from your RV or your van. So the 12th thing to think about is, what is your why for being in this lifestyle? Now that may sound like a funny question, but there are going to be challenges that come up, and there are going to be times that you're like, I don't like this. I don't like this certain aspect of it, and it can frustrate you. And in those moments, you're going to have to remember your why you decided to do this. I know for me, and for a lot of people that I know in this full-time lifestyle of being a nomad, is that this lifestyle is probably 99.2% amazing, and then the rest can be frustrating and challenging. So it happens. Your RV is going to break. You're going to need to do repairs on it. It's a moving house on wheels, so there's bound to be something that's going to break on it. So you'll want to make sure you have funds for that too, and be flexible so that you can kind of roll with the punches and the challenges when it happens. So figure out your why, write it down if you have to, and keep that with you when you go into this lifestyle, because sometimes that's what's going to get you through. I'll give you an example. I've been on the East Coast for a little while, and while I loved a lot of the things that the East Coast had to offer, it's just not my cup of tea. It's hot, it's humid, it's more congested, there's a lot of people, it's noisier, and I just don't prefer that. I like the West Coast where we have this beautiful land to camp out on, which, like I said, they don't have that much on the East Coast. So I was either urban camping, parking lot camping, or being in a campground, and it was really starting to bother me because I like this where I'm at right now. It's beautiful, and you know, I can stay put for a little while and really relax and enjoy Mother Nature and explore the area that I'm in. So that's my preference. And I had to really think about my why, because there was a time when I was on the East Coast where I was a little bit anxious and frustrated with some of the stuff there. So I had to really remember my why in the situation. The 13th item is, where will you go when you get sick? You know, that can be a cold, it can be the flu, it could be you might have to have emergency surgery. So what will you do when those things happen? Because it will. Something will happen eventually, because it's just part of being a human being. We get sick. Your options are, you could stay in your van or your RV and stay in a campground. Depends on the situation. You could go to an Airbnb, or you could go to a hotel or friends and family. It's definitely something that you need to think of and have a plan for when it does happen. For me, I've been doing hotels. That's what I'll do whenever I feel like I need kind of a break from the RV, or if I'm not feeling well. There was a time this last year when I had a cyst on my eyeball, and I had to go back and forth to an eye doctor a couple of times. So I moved down to a campground in the Yuma, Arizona area where the doctor was at, and I stayed there for a couple of weeks until I got it all sorted out. The 14th item is, what are you gonna do when you break down? It will happen eventually. You'll get a flat tire, you'll have something mechanically go wrong in your RV, and you're gonna need to get a tow. You're gonna probably need to figure out what will your accommodations be for that evening, whether it's you can stay in the van or the RV at the shop that you're taking your RV to get fixed. Will you stay in a hotel, friends, Airbnb? Kind of the same situation as if you got sick, but there will be times when that happens, and you're gonna need to figure out what those accommodations are going to be. I know for me, whenever I've had issues with my van, and I've had some repairs done that will take more than a 24-hour period, and I have to stay somewhere overnight. A lot of times I'll just tell them that I'm a full-time RVer, I live out of my van, and so can I just stay in there while you guys are working on it? And most of the time they're very considerate and they've allowed me to do it. So the last thing, the 15th item, is, how will you get your mail? That's a huge question for people considering this lifestyle, because we all need to get mail at some point in time. I've gotten my mail to the point where a lot of it is just electronic and digital, so I don't have to worry about it. But there are things like voter registration or legal papers that you need. You need to think about your auto insurance and your health insurance as well. You'll need to think about where you want to set your mail up. So it could be in the same state that you reside in now, or for me, like I was coming from Washington State where I lived for the last 15 years of my life, and now I'm domiciled in Texas because there's a place there called the Escapees RV Park, and they have a mail forwarding service that's all online as well. So I have all my mail go there, and then I just have them ship it to me when I'm in a location that I'm staying in for a while. So that's how I actually get my mail, but you'll want to think about that. So you can get a mail forwarding service, or you can have it for your friends and your family do it for you as well, if you trust them enough. Hopefully you do. So guys, I hope that gives you enough information to think about before you go into this lifestyle, and really consider all of the things that might come up, from financial things to your rig. And if you need any more help with that, I do have a course called the Nomad Mentorship Bootcamp. I have a link down in the description box below if you want to check that out and see what it's all about, where I help mentor people to transition from the sticks and bricks lifestyle into a nomadic lifestyle, and really dig in and figure out what are your concerns, what are the things happening in your own specific situation that we can address in live video group calls and also in our community group. If you want to get started with that, just go ahead and click the link below for the Nomad Mentorship Bootcamp. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to show you, I have some new shirts. This is all on my new store. This is the gray shirt with a white logo, and I have various options for these. I have mugs, I have cups, I have all different types of things for you guys. I did this because you guys wanted it. It's been a long time coming. So if you're interested in buying anything with Story Chasing brand on it, then click the link below as well. It goes straight to storychasing.com/shop, and you will find all of those different accessories and shirts there. So the fourth thing to think about is, oh my gosh, all this wind. There goes the sun again. Come on, sun, come back. It's definitely this wind, oh my god. This is why I don't do videos outside a lot of times, because there's just too much to deal with. I'm dealing with the brightness, the wind, the dogs, oh my gosh, it's crazy. So it's gonna be a miracle if this thing comes together. All right guys, thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.